Good afternoon from the sunny United Kingdom. We're actually really local on this one. I've done interviews all across the world so far, but here we are back into the United Kingdom. And my real gem of information today comes from one of my colleagues on the London Rail course, who actually is able to get information, heating information, across the electric barrier. So this interview is all about how we bridge that gap from somebody who's done it, and I'm fascinated to hear her experience. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce Sarah Louise.
Hi everybody, my name's Sarah and I just wanted to talk today about how we can work online, because this is how we're going at the moment. Now, my background quickly is nursing, 24 years in nursing, a nurse prescriber, meaning I have the same prescribing licence as a doctor. But over the last few years, I started to realise that we don't heal from the outside in, we heal from the inside out. So I retrained as a breath worker, a somatic breath worker, in acupuncture, in emotional release body work, nutrition, and finally havening. Now, these two, somatic breathwork and havening, work amazingly online. It's exactly the same as working in person. So to explain a bit more, I'm just going to go back a bit, I'm going to backtrack. Stress, anxiety, depression, OCD, phobias, where they all come from. And particularly in today, what's happening, there's a lot of stress and anxiety going on, and we can do something about this. So for you to understand, what we'll do is we'll go back and we're going to give an example of child A and child B. So child A, mother's pregnant, she's planned the pregnancy, she's happy, she's nurturing baby, she's eating well, she's in a good relationship, finances are stable, home's stable. So all that time in the womb, baby is very, very comfortable, getting nurtured and getting all them happy hormones from mother. And when the child's born, the mother, when she's breastfeeding or bottle feeding, she's getting the connection, the eye-to-eye connection, which is really, really important, and the oral connection with the baby. And this makes a lot of difference in later life, which I'll explain in a bit. So the child goes on, safe environment, so this child develops a very strong resilience, was the word, and a lot of strength inside. And then you get child B, maybe an unwanted pregnancy, or the mother's in an unstable relationship, or they could have money worries. So all these worries that mum's having is going through to baby emotionally. And when baby's born, mother may be distracted, she may have postnatal depression, she may be on the mobile, which is prevalent nowadays, and not giving the eye contact to baby, not getting the oral feed, you know, they're getting fed, but there's no connection. Babies are super, super sensitive to mothers. They pick up every emotion. So when this is happening to child B, what happens is the baby starts to get disassociated. And you can see this in people as they're older. We can get the people with the bulging eyes. You can see them all, you know, the bulging eyes, or the people that have got very squinty eyes and the rigid faces and the thin lips. It's all related to what we're holding around this area. And this is what we can work with in breathwork to release all this held tension and trauma that's held all around this area. The oral stands for a lot why people smoke, why they drink, why they overeat, emotional eating, and it's all to do with this connection as a baby. And they're trying to fulfill what they didn't get as a child. So, as these two children travel through life, child A may get shock traumas coming in, but because of their resilience, they can cope. Child B, if the shock traumas come in, now what is happening at the moment, COVID-19, is a shock trauma to everybody. It's been a big shock trauma. So these people with very unresilient landscapes, these child B, are unable, are struggling to cope. This is where all the stress, anxiety, fear, huge things are coming in. Now what we can do online at the moment because that's the way it's got to be, and it's the way I was very resistant myself about it initially. I have worked on all the time. I have to, because I have to continue doing my work, and I've been working online with my stuff for the last 12 weeks. It's very powerful. So the two things, like I say, I do is havening. Havening is a scientifically proven technique that actually changes the brain chemistry in the amygdala through a process, which I'll show you a quick example of it in a bit.
Yeah, please, I love it.
Shall we do it now? And while I'm on it, I'll show. It's so simple. It's such a simple technique. There's many ways to deal with it. Paul McKenna, if you've heard of him, is a bit of a pioneer for it. It was done by two doctors, but introduced. Paul McKenna actually spoke to these two doctors about somatic therapies and psychosomatic therapy, and these two doctors researched it for 10 years because they wanted the science behind it. So it's really simple. What we do is just palms of our hands. One of the ways is just to rub them together. And what this does as we do it, it starts to produce the delta waves in our body, which is the sort of relaxation of parasympathetic nervous system, which produces dopamine, serotonin, GABA, all the feel-good hormones. And then we just put our hands on our shoulders and just stroke down. As we do it, usually we'll, close our eyes while we're doing it. And it gives a very calming effect. So if you feel very stressed, that, I've got a lot of anxiety, you could just sit and just do this, and it will give you that very calming effect. And the third way to do it is with your hands and just down your face. It's just stroking down the face. And that's just like mother would do with baby. And the havening, actually, while we're doing this, we'd bring up the emotion first. What we would do is bring up that emotion, that stress, that anxiety. What's that trigger? What's that trigger going on? So we'll bring that up, and it's only at the beginning, and then we'd start doing this, and then we'll take you through a process. There's several different processes that you go through. So it would very much depend on where I'm directed myself to go with you, but it's instantaneous. This work is instantaneous. While all this is happening, there is something going on which it releases an enzyme in the amygdala, and it literally unglues this receptor that's held on through the trauma away from it, and it dissolves within the body. Everyone I've worked with they can remember the event or the emotion that they came in with, but they say it's an event, for example, and it's shock trauma that's happened in an event, which brought a lot of emotion to them. So they can remember it, the memory's still there, everything's still there, but they cannot attach any emotion to it. That's how it works. Now, the other side of it is the breath work. And what we do with the breath work is we call them the 7 belts of tension around the body. So it's around the ocular, the oral, the throat, around the heart, the pelvis, the legs. So we work with all these 7 belts of tension. And what we do is through the breath, and we use the breath in this, so it's breathing in and out quite consistently. And as we do it, we work with ourselves, because we can do it ourselves. We work through the head, around the mouth, around the throat, around the neck, around the shoulders. And each part, it's not all done in one go. It's done in separate sessions. It would be far too much in one go. And it's done so we bring you up and down. So it doesn't put you into trauma or anything like that. But it also brings you really into your body, really connects you into your body. It connects us to our feeling sense. It's a mind-body connection. So these are the two things that are super powerful to work with. And bring us out of this stress. We don't have to stay in it. We don't have to stay in stress. We don't have to stay in anxiety. There are techniques out there that we can work with. So, yeah, I think that's, briefly explains it there.
That's great, because that's a breakdown of something that I would bet you the vast majority of people have never seen or heard of. And there is a 2-minute breakdown of exercises that you can very rarely do at home regularly. And you're offering courses, aren't you, to help people to engage with this, instructional courses, potentially one-on-one as well. So this is a really powerful method to get the information out that healing is possible within this constricted time and into the future, when all of this breaks down and we can get back to normal, whatever that normality is. People can still use these techniques. And I think one of the things why I wanted to reach out to you, Sarah, is because I think we're of the same mind, in the sense that the real lesson of all this is the empowerment of the individual. And that's what the series that I'm interested in getting the information out there is targeted to do, in the sense that even from the acupuncture perspective, or the massage, or the nutritionalist side, from your side, I would think relatively similar. People need to know this. It's not anymore that these informations are controlled from up, down on high, and they're prescripted down to people in measured, controlled amounts. People have access to this information. And even with a bit of awakening into this, you can begin to control your health. The detractors would argue, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this also, that each one of these individual practices has its limitations. And you're coming at this from a really unique background, working as a nurse practitioner. I mean, you've got an immense wealth of experience on that basis, seeing people on the front line as somebody who's worked with patients. And you mentioned before infants as well. I would love to talk to you at depth at some point about your experience with, do they respond to this better than they do pharmaceutical drugs potentially? Do they need a mixture of both? Point is, everyone needs a bit of all of this. They need additions from all of these different angles to rebalance the mind, fix them physiologically and physically as much as possible. And none of these are disconnected. And I'm keen to get this message out to people that when you go to your medical professional, if you are in possession of the knowledge, you can direct your therapy far more accurately, whatever that therapy is, to your surgeon or your doctor or your therapist, your emotional therapist. You can go to an acupuncturist. You can tell them precisely what your issues are, because you are in possession of the basics. You can give people then the opportunity to massively improve your recipient of the treatment. Your benefits will improve exponentially if you're able to report accurately what the issue is. So people know this intrinsically. I've come to sort of realize that it's all within us. Your processes are really important to awaken the mind. What's your experience? So I can just throw a bit of a curved ball in here. What's your experience in terms of waking people up to this, from your experience, Sarah?
I think for me, the people I've worked with have come to realise that all is not as it seems, and who am I? Who am I? And we wear a different mask, we're in the house, and this is us. So we step out the door, we put another mask on, and we go into a workplace and we put another mask on. And that, it's like, becomes, who am I? Who am I? I want to know who I am and what's my purpose and what am I here for. And by doing this work, by coming back into ourselves, coming home to ourselves, that's what I call it, is we start discovering actually who we are. And we stop having to wear these masks, and we become authentic because we start coming from the heart place. When we come from the heart, we become quite powerful in what we say, in our speech, the people we attract. And as our inner world changes, our outer world changes. It's quite miraculous how it happens. And it's easy to say when somebody's in a state of stress and anxiety, how can that work? It really does work. It really does happen like that. I was a classic example for it. As I said, when I was a nurse, I had insomnia, I had weight issues, I had food allergies, I had all sorts, and I'd resolved them all completely myself. I'm the best sleeper ever. I took sleeping pills to sleep.
Really?
I was so, yeah, seriously, I was so bad. I took diazepam to go on an aeroplane because I had anxiety. So I've done this all just by this work. No medication. I haven't took a paracetamol, an ibuprofen, probably for about 4 years now. I had flu, full-blown flu, and I used essential oils to get through it, and breath. That's what I used.
Wow.
It does work. You know, I'm a classic example, and people that have known me from the past, you know, again and again are amazed by the difference in me. And it's all come through this work. And,
really?
And as you start to see the difference, you just want more and more. That's how it works.
It is cumulative, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a fascinating awakening that people have. And I think from my perspective, as somebody who's involved in quite high intensity athletics as well, running, I think it's really vital that athletes of any standard are doing these exercises regularly to ameliorate their results athletically when they come to their events, to get rid of anxiety before events, to help them particularly with the heart stress. Your breathing is directly correlated to your heart rate. If you can control your breathing, you can control your heart rate in high intensity exercise, so you can go faster, you can train harder. You know, I'm 33 now, and I think this is maybe, if I'd known all this 10 years ago, I think I might have it had given me an edge that I didn't have. I bumbled through and I found information as best I could as I went, and I was quite lucky that I'm generally quite fast off the block anyway. So for me, this information is gold dust from a perspective that maybe people don't realize, that they think, oh, I've got to be ill to be doing this. No, you get ahead. The preventative medicine. You know, would you like to talk to people about the preventative aspects of this?
Well, that's exactly what it is. Rather than getting to the place where things have actually started to go wrong in the body, it's like, why not work with it now? You know, because underneath what we would class as somebody functioning quite well in society, we've all got some trauma from our past, all of us. Nobody gets away with it. Not in this life, not in this world. It's too difficult. Some just cope better than others. And, you know, I do breath work every morning. And like you say, I do it purely because when I get on my bike, when I go out, because I'm not a runner, I like do cycling. Right. Now I can use my breath and direct my breath right down to my legs. I can get up them hills so much better. Instead of puffing and panting and, you know, in the negative thought. I mean, that's the other thing, is about this, you know, negative thought that we have, this limiting self-belief, these negative thoughts, they all start to change. You know, instead of going up that hill, oh, this is too hard, this is hard, this is hard. And you change, your thought process all changes, and it just becomes easier and easier. Life becomes easier. Life begins to flow. We get in the river and we're going with the river rather than trying to go upstream against it.
Yeah, and I think we were speaking before, you're working a lot with chronic patients as well. And I think, you know, getting this positive mindset into somebody who's had pain for a long time is quite tough from my experience, even eye to eye. Yeah. But I'm fascinated to see where this will go, because I think if we can genuinely work effectively with people online and doing the somatic healing online, I think it will be absolutely fundamental to their recovery. And we've got to get this message out. We have absolutely got to expand our reach here into people who maybe are thinking about getting into other realms of medicine, who are disappointed with the very linear approach from their general practitioner. They're not happy with pain relief, they're not happy with the sleeping advice they're getting, they're not happy with very basic dietary advice. I mean, who isn't in this category? Everybody is caught by this. So it's, you know, it's a really fascinating world in which we live, that this information is there at our fingertips, ready to go. And then we start to add things onto it. So if you're doing the breathing, then you're going to be certainly building your lung chi. So you're going to be then capable of producing a lot more information and energy within your body. So your yoga is going to be a lot better. And then when you're doing your yoga, you can start to improve your flexibility. You're going to be stretching muscles. You're going to be flushing fresh blood into all your muscles. The blood's going to be well oxygenated, so therefore it's going to be less acidic. So any chronic disease you've got is going to be going down. You know, where does this stop?
Yes, and again, in the environment and what's happening now, when we have all this going on about what you're talking about, why we no longer have fear about it. We no longer have fear about, you know, what's going on with COVID-19. We're taking responsibility for ourselves. We're taking responsibility for our immune system, for our thoughts, for our bodies, and the fear just is not there. And even if, you know, we get ill or we get something, we trust in our bodies and we trust in our health to help us along the way, rather than, you know, it's like what we're putting into our bodies, what we're eating in our bodies, the thoughts we're having in our bodies, the holding we have in our bodies will all attract more fear into us and more disease into us, than rather than if we work, like I say, as a preventative, if we work with it, we clear everything, or we have good thoughts, or, you know, we eat well, why would we have fear? Why would we?
Absolutely. And that's really fundamental, isn't it? I'm doing a series on people's lower backs because I think it's fundamental to their overall health. And if you reduce people's fear in their life, then your kidney strength is much greater. So your lower back will improve. It's a fact. You know, so I would be really fascinated to do some conjoined work together. If there's anyone out there who wants to take part in this, come down, because the data on this is ready for the taking. And your wealth of experience with your nurse practitioning, and in terms of you working with infants, and, you know, your history with looking at the established systems through a rather healthily skeptical eye, people need to be hearing that. People must get this information. Have I missed anything that you'd love to get out?
Only I didn't work with infants. I've done a lot of research into from the trauma side of trauma side of infants, from the trauma work that I've done, because
really,
yeah, this is where all my knowledge has come from. It's about research and matching up what happens in utero, what happens in, you know, very early baby's childhood, has a huge effect on us as a teenager, and it gets worse as an adult if we don't address it, because it starts to come out in physical aspects as well. You know, like anything, if we, you know, and this is purely my point of view, is that a lot of the physical aspects in our bodies, a lot of, you know, ME, for example, one of the things I've worked with is manifested through this holding, this tight holding within us that we've not been able to get. It's something that we've had, it's a trauma that's happened, that's come into us, that emotion's come into us, and we've not been able to express it. So, for example, if we had a parent that said, stop crying, not allowed to cry, your boy, you know, boys don't cry, boys don't cry. So that boy holds back, holds the breath and holds the tears back, because the breath connects into the emotion. The emotion is energy in motion. So once you do that, you're trapping that energy within the body, and it's stuck. Energy doesn't want to be stuck. Energy wants to be moving.
Absolutely.
So that's how we release it, is through this work.
Yeah, and the removal of stagnation is fundamental, isn't it, to getting people moving, which then improves their health potential significantly. And at any age, it's vital. We must continue this at some point. There's so much data there, I think we can work off. How's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Probably the best way is on my website now. It's www.breatheintoalchemy, which for me is breathe into transformation. That's why I picked that name, .co.uk. So it's breatheintoalchemy.co.uk. And all my details are on there to contact me.
Yeah, and I'll put these underneath the chat as well,
Yeah.
so people can definitely contact you. But
Yeah.
the audience is definitely out there. We need to be getting this message out. So let's like and share this.
So important now, you know.
Absolutely vital.
It's time for us to really come into our empowerment, like no other time.
Yeah, and I'm really pleased we did this, because you're coming at this from a very, if I can gently put it, a veteran experience of a wealth of different depths. I've got suspicions of, let's put it, of what I expect to find, but haven't yet, because I'm fairly new to all this, perhaps come across it. So I think the combination there is potentially very, very powerful indeed. So let's take this forwards. And it's been really fascinating to speak with you today.
And you. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.